Hello, it's Sam with WonderFil Specialty Threads, and today I'm here to show you and walk through the unboxing of the Bernette 05 Academy machine. Now we're gonna do the ASMR part. Oh God. I hope these are good fabric scissors. I'll take this out first. Surely there's a way you're supposed to do this. I'm gonna put it on the floor. I can't even get it out in general. Amazing, so easy. That was easy. I'll be honest, I'm sweating. Okay. Here we go. Very elegant and beautiful unboxing, if I do say so myself. Yeah, a very satisfying video. And now we do the ASMR. And here is the beautiful machine in a lovely blue color. And I'm gonna go through some of the accessories that come in the box, and then at the end of the video, I'm gonna walk through kind of step by step on different parts of the machine. And if you're a beginner, then you can kind of follow along. Most machines are kind of similar. You can use your own machine as a guide and kind of follow along with me. Okay, so first, obviously the machine, and then something that comes with it. And this doesn't come with every machine, so it is a big benefit to this one, is an extendable table. Ooh. So the table just extends onto the machine. I'll show you how to do that later. So the power cord and the foot pedal, in this case, are one. The last thing is the little baggie of accessories. So this is very important, even though it kind of looks like a mishmash of plastic and metal that you maybe don't need, but you do need this, and I promise you that. Basically, this is just like a starter set to get started on your machine. So it has all of the tools that you're really gonna need. Of course, you could buy things and you can have your own kind of custom accessories as well. But for the most part, this will get you started. So one thing that's included here is 5 needles. It does come with a specific brand. This doesn't have to be the only brand that you use on your machine. Look up your machine and see what kind of needles that it takes. For most domestic machines, they're gonna be like a flat back needle. So that's typically universal. If you can find like a flat back needle, so these are organ needles, but you can also use like Schmetz on most Bernette, Bernina, like any day machines. Some of the next accessories that we've got are thread related, which obviously is our specialty. So there's a few different ways you can actually put your spool onto the machine. So you can put the spool horizontal on your machine. This is better for small spools, but another option, especially if you have a bigger spool, is there's this little stick that comes with your accessories, which sits on top of your machine like this. There's like a little hole that you stick it in, and then your thread comes off here and it feeds in the same way that it would if you did it horizontally. Then a very important item is the machine oil. So not every single machine needs to be oiled. Make sure you read your machine manual. For this one, it'll tell you exactly where to oil it. Sometimes they'll tell you how often to oil it. And for this, it just comes with a little one. This will probably last you like years. Honestly, you don't have to oil a ton. If you're using your machine like daily or weekly, you might want to consider oiling it a little bit more. And we're gonna have a video later on about machine maintenance. Every machine that you buy new is gonna come with some plastic bobbins. This is what goes on the bottom underneath your needle. So this is basically the bottom to catch the bottom of your thread and create the stitches. We sell bobbins as well. So if you want something, maybe you sew a lot, we have them pre-wound with thread, so you don't necessarily have to spend the time winding it. But if you want an exact color match or you're particular on the thread that you're using, maybe like a thicker thread, then you can wind them yourself using the bobbin winder, and you can follow the manual on how to do that on your machine. Something else that comes with it is this cute little teeny screwdriver. Then in this bag, I'm not gonna take everything out, but we have a combo of different presser feet. So you wanna change your feet out depending on your project. So for the most part, like beginners are gonna be doing straight stitching, so you can really stick to the basics of the foot. But if you're doing like a zipper, or maybe you're doing something a little bit more intricate, like a zigzag or a decorative stitch, you might wanna switch out your foot. And again, your manual or looking online will help you determine kind of like what foot will be best for your project. And then the last item in here that I really wanna mention is very simple, but it is this tiny brush and seam ripper combo. I would say pretty much every machine would also have this. Again, as a beginner, a little brush is nice because you can clean all of the fuzz out of your machine. And then the dreaded seam ripper. And nobody wants this, and I wish it wasn't a tool that came with the machine, but unfortunately, this is the reality of our lives. The seam ripper is to fix your mistakes, and you need to rip your seams because you messed up. And we don't want to admit it, but this is a necessary tool. Now that we've gone through unboxing the machine, we're gonna do a little bit of a walkthrough so you can see how to set up the machine for the first time. And if your machine isn't exactly the same, if it's kind of a starter machine, it'll be pretty similar. So you can kind of use this as a bit of a reference. Again, follow your manual. It'll tell you how to thread it. It'll tell you different parts of the machine. So I'm just going over this machine, but it should be relevant to kind of any basic machine. All right, so now we're going to walk through the steps of setting up your machine. First thing you're gonna need is the foot pedal with the power cord to plug into your machine. So this part of your cord will plug into the machine. Now we're gonna talk about threading your machine. I'm gonna do a more in-depth video after this to show threading on different types of machines, so you can kind of get an idea of what it might look like for you. On this machine, there's two spots where you can put your thread. You can put it on the vertical spool pin. You can also use the horizontal spool holder, which, depending on what type of thread you've got or what kind of spool you have, this could be a convenient option. I would suggest with your accessories, it comes with a little cap to hold that on. So you can use that to kind of keep your spool from dangling around everywhere. And then you would just thread this by following the thread paths laid out on your machine. The next step that you're gonna need to do to get started is you're gonna wanna wind your bobbin. So you could either buy a pre-wound bobbin, which is something that we sell that already has the thread on here. Your machine also comes with one bobbin pre-wound, but if you want a matching color, you're gonna have to wind your bobbin. So using your thread, I typically do like it on this upper spool pin personally, and if you're sewing a lot, you might want a bigger spool like this. Then it shows you in the picture on the top here, but most bobbins will have this little hole that you can stick the thread through so that it goes kind of from the inside to the outside of the bobbin. And again, this one actually shows you the picture specifically. Not every machine will do that, and some machines might have a different type of way to wind the bobbin, but it's pretty universal. So you pull this over. This is called the bobbin winder. And when you push this over, when you press down on your foot pedal, then this will actually wind the bobbin for you. In order to make this area clear to get our bobbin thread back in, we're going to need to raise the presser foot. So when you get the machine, typically the presser foot comes in the down position. So you can see it's down flush with the throat plate here. We're gonna raise that up with the button. This is basically like a lever you push up. So this area is called the throat plate. And then this is the bobbin. So to open this, most machines will have a little black button like this. You're gonna pull that. There's a little arrow for this one too. So again, you just pull that towards the arrow and it pops open this plastic protector here. This shows you, before I even take it off, how to put the bobbin back in, which I'm gonna show you now. So you just remove this piece and put it to the side. Again, lots of more arrows to show how to feed this thread through so that it'll properly pull up. So this is the first clip and we're following the arrow. And if we just kind of hold the thread taut, we're gonna be able to follow the next thread guide here, which is wrapping around the corner. And we're gonna be pulling it down. So when I pull this down, this is actually a little thread cutter here. Not every machine has the thread cutter in the bobbin section. When you pull it back up through the needle, the tail won't be super long trying to pull it through. It'll just be the perfect length. So we cut the end of the tail of the bobbin thread, and now our machine has been threaded on the top, and we're gonna use your top thread with the needle. This is gonna pull the bobbin thread through and loop it, kind of like a little magic trick. So I like to hold my top needle thread taut so that it creates some tension. This will basically loop down with like a hook, and it'll hook and grab that bobbin thread. So the bobbin thread, you can see, came up here. You can use tweezers or snips or whatever you've got. I'm just gonna use my finger to swipe it. If I can. That was smooth. And I'm just gonna pull that out here with my top thread. So now I have the top and the bobbin thread coming out here, and this is exactly where you want it to come out. You need both of these threads basically exposed out here, because if you start with it in the machine, then it could create loops or knots before you start stitching. So it's best to just pull it out. It's nice to leave a bit of a tail, especially as a beginner, just so you can kind of keep an eye on what's happening. And then we're gonna stick back on this plastic cover plate onto the bobbin. So the side knob here, this is what controls the needle going up and down. Obviously you can use the foot pedal for that when you're stitching typically, but if you're just doing some stitches to start, or if you want to do something like how I just pulled the bobbin thread up, you need to do like one pass of the needle coming up and down. So if you pull this towards you, this will do the needle going up and down. The first style that we're going to show you is the stitch width dial. So typically it stays at 0 when you're straight stitching, because your stitch is just going to stay right in the middle. But if you're doing something more decorative or a zigzag stitch, You can make your dial a bigger number, which will widen your stitch length and make the zigzags bigger or smaller. And you can use this on decorative stitches as well. The next dial is the needle position dial. So typically this will stay in the middle position. That means that it stays in the middle of the presser foot, directly in the middle. You can see this on your throat plate as well. It will be right in the center position of your measurements, but you can adjust the needle so that it can go a little bit more to the left or a little bit more to the right of your presser foot, just in case maybe you're doing like a zipper or you're doing something like with a bulkier seam and you want that needle to be moved a little bit more in position to your stitch. The next amazing tool on this machine is the presser foot pressure dial. This machine has this great feature where you can actually adjust the presser foot. So the presser foot kind of sits at a typical height. This dial can make the presser foot sit a little bit closer to the throat plate, or you can adjust it a little bit higher from the throat plate. And the reason why this is a huge benefit is because if you're using a thicker or a thinner fabric, then you can adjust your presser foot accordingly. The next most important dial is the stitch length dial. So every single machine on the planet will have this. It'll adjust your stitch length to be longer or shorter. So the reason why this is necessary is because certain fabric, certain stitches, you want them to either be a little bit tighter and more locked in. So the tighter the stitch length is, the harder it is to kind of come undone. So it's gonna lock those stitches in place a little bit more, but be careful if you're a beginner, because the shorter your stitch length is, the harder it can be to unpick that mistake. So if you're starting off for the first time, you might wanna start off with some longer stitch lengths just to practice. It also doesn't hurt to have something like a practice scrap piece of fabric just to test out first. Make sure you're confident, make sure you know what settings on the machine you want before you stitch your official project. The most typical stitch length is probably about 2.5, but if you're using a thinner thread, you want to make that a little bit lower. If you're using a thicker thread or a decorative thread, you might want that a little bit higher. Now, another important dial is the stitch type dial. So this machine, the Bernette 05 Academy, has 30 stitches. So 30 stitches is a good amount to start with. You're gonna have primarily the straight stitch that you're gonna use. A lot of people also use the zigzag stitch, which would be A and B on your stitch dial. You can also try to play around with some of the other decorative stitches, which are also available on this machine, and probably whatever machine you have at home. Another important and classic feature that most machines would have is the back stitch. So the back stitch is gonna be close by your threading path. It's gonna kind of look like a U-turn arrow. And essentially it's gonna be a button that you push up and down, you hold it down to back stitch it, and when it's up, it's gonna straight stitch. I would suggest doing a back stitch at the beginning and the end of your sewing line so that it locks in that whole line of stitching. Along your thread path, there's also likely a tension control dial. So for us, this is red. It's very bold and easy to see. So for this, it's gonna adjust the tension of the top of your thread that goes into the needle. The tension basically just means how taut is the thread. So we're gonna need to control that, because sometimes if you have more of a thin thread, more of a thick thread, or maybe you have a different kind of project in your machine, you wanna be able to control this, because sometimes you might get some issues with your sewing and you need to be able to adjust them. So I would suggest keeping the dial as it is from the manufacturer, but if you have any issues, you can check out our later video on troubleshooting, or you can play around with the dial kind of one step at a time and see if you can determine what the issue is from there. So a main component of your stitching is gonna be the presser foot. So the presser foot is interchangeable. and there are different uses for different feet. You can check your manual for the best uses for your project. This is the one that came default on the machine, and it has something called a finger guard. This is good for beginners because you make sure that your fingers are a little safe from the needle. The second most important part of the machine, I would say, is the needle. So we're gonna have another video about maintenance, and a big part of that is your needle. You can take off your needle or your presser foot with some screw. There's like some little sections that screw off, and you can just unscrew them and re-screw in your presser foot or your needle. And then some extra nice tool we have involved here is the needle threader. All machines have interchangeable presser feet. So this one is just a basic presser foot for straight stitching, basic stitching, but your machine should come with, or you can purchase, extra feet that are kind of based on your specific project. So if you need a little bit of a wider space for a decorative stitch, or if you're doing a zipper or something like that, there's specific feet for almost any kind of stitching or project. Something else I really need to stress is how important your needles are. So you can get all kinds of different types of needles that are specific for your project. As a beginner, there are needles that are more universal or an everyday needle. And there's gonna be some that come with your machine, as we showed in the unboxing, that you can use just to start with. But please keep in mind that you have to change your needle. We suggest probably every 8 hours or at least between projects. You have to change your needle, otherwise they start to get dull, they can start to get burrs, and then they can kind of start to ruin your project, especially if you've got like a more delicate fabric. So please change your needles more often than you think, and change your needle for your specific project so the needle size reflects the thread, the type of fabric, all of that jazz. So there's all kinds of aspects to think about. So we've been talking about the Bernette 05 Academy. There's also a Bernette 05 called the Crafter, which looks essentially the same. But one huge benefit of this machine is that there's actually an extendable table. So if you know you're going to be doing larger projects like large skirts, capes, or something where you need a little bit more table space, we're going to actually pop off this attachment and we can slide on the table. The table has the measurements all extending. So this is nice again if you have a larger project and you want to line up so you can do a straight stitch. Again, one of the main focuses on this machine is how adjustable it is and how many variations you can do for your project. So it is quite versatile for beginners or for people that already know how to sew. You kind of have all kinds of aspects and how you can adjust it. You can think more outside of the box and do it creatively as well. So I actually handpicked this machine to use from Bernette for some of these videos because there are a handful of different reasons, especially for beginners. So one of the main reasons is that it is durable, it's a pretty strong machine, but it's still at a really great price point, so it's doable for most people, especially if you know that this is a passion of yours or something that you want to get into. It really is good to invest. I know it's hard to give up your money, but the more that you invest in something like this, which you're going to be using all the time, it's really important that you have something good. Because if you buy some like cheap machine off of Facebook and it just kind of could fall apart, or maybe you have to get it serviced right away, buying a machine new is something I personally would suggest. The other thing is it's quite adjustable. So there's different stitches. There's actually 30 stitches available on this machine, but 30 may not sound like a ton of options. Honestly, it is. Most people don't end up using all 30 stitches on their machine, but you have the availability to do straight stitch, you can do zigzag stitch. Those would be the most common, but then this one also has some decorative stitches. So you can kind of do all kinds of things on your machine, anything for the most part that you need, especially as a beginner. This machine is great as a beginner, but you can actually also use it as more of like an expert. If you sew a lot, you don't need a ton of functions. And honestly, if you're creative, and most people in this world are creative, you can find a way to make anything work. I think most of you would know how versatile you can be and how crafty you can be. And that's kind of the point of this channel, is to show cosplay and also crafts. And honestly, being able to kind of make things work is part of the creative process. So you can make most stitches into something a little bit more the way that you want it for your cosplay. So maybe think outside the box, and you're able to do that pretty good on a basic machine like this. I hope you enjoyed the unboxing of our new Bernette 05 Academy machine. We're going to be doing a lot more videos where we showcase some of the benefits and kind of getting started on your own home machine. If you want to see more videos like this, you can subscribe and check out all of our social media for more information. Thanks for watching, crafters and cosplayers. Want to keep the creativity going? Come join us on our brand new Discord community, where you can connect with fellow cosplayers, share your projects, and get inspired. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. Just look for WonderFil Specialty Threads everywhere. And if you'd like the latest tutorials, thread tips, and creative inspiration delivered straight to you, sign up for our newsletter. All the links are in the description below, so you can join the community wherever you like to hang out. Until next time, keep stitching, keep creating, and we'll see you in the next video.